Coverage moves now to CBS 4's Maggie Newland and how South Florida is reacting to today's big events. Maggie?
Cynthia, here in Little Havana, there were some very strong reactions to that meeting between President Obama and Raul Castro. However, whether people thought it was a positive and negative, well, it all depends on whom you ask. The talk in Little Havana surrounded this historic handshake and meeting between President Obama and Raul Castro.
I'm not against it.
This is a big lie.
The conversation between the leaders of the U.S. and Cuba drew mixed reactions in Miami. Some see no benefit for the people of Cuba.
The benefits is for the Castro family, and I don't know what Obama wants from that deal.
Others say normalizing relations is a step in the right direction.
This has been going on for way too long. And the only people that have suffered and paid for that are the Cuban people.
Often opinions divided along generational lines.
Why live in the past, you know? I know that the old Cuban guard doesn't want to go that way, but I'm all in.
Paul Palermo lived in Cuba until he was 11. He says his mother was one of the first Cuban refugees, and he says her opinion about normalizing relations with Cuba is very different than his.
My mother believes that it's not going to help the Cuban people. It's going to help only the American businesses, but I think it's going to trickle down. It's got to.
Unlike other countries where you could say, well, if you have economic engagement, it leads to a greater society. In Cuba, that will not happen because everything is state-owned and state-controlled.
Congresswoman Ileana Ross-Lehtinen was not happy to see the president extending his hand to Castro.
To validate and legitimize that regime by that handshake sickens me.
Whether they feel disgust or hope about this meeting between Obama and Castro, people here in South Florida say their thoughts are with those still living in Cuba.
Wherever there's peace is better than not, I think, you know, and I hope that it works out for the Cuban people.
And whatever their opinions, many people here tell us they will be watching closely to see what happens next between the U.S. and Cuba. We're live in Little Havana. Maggie Newland, CBS 4 News Tonight.
Thanks, Maggie. And look for continuing coverage of today's historic meeting between President Obama and Raul Castro on CBSMiami.com and again tomorrow on CBS 4 News.